In the Battle of Feishui, the Qin army was routed. When Fu Jian, wounded, retreated to the north of the Huai River, he was extremely hungry. A commoner spotted him and immediately offered him food. Fu Jian then offered a reward, but the commoner refused to accept it, saying that as a subject of Emperor Fu Jian, he was like a son to him, and filial piety to one's father, especially an emperor, was not to be rewarded. But he unabashedly remarked that Fu Jian's campaign against Jin was a self-inflicted calamity. At this point, his attitude had shifted from seeing Fu Jian as an emperor to treating him like family. In fact, many ministers in the court opposed the campaign against Jin. Even Fu Jian's closest brother, Fu Rong, vehemently opposed it and reminded him of the dying words of the late Prime Minister Wang Meng, urging him not to entertain thoughts of attacking Jin. However, none of this could awaken him. Now, with the Qin army defeated and Fu Rong killed in battle, even ordinary citizens dared to tell him, the emperor, that Qin should not have attacked Jin. This filled Fu Jian with deep regret and touched him profoundly, leading him to shed tears upon hearing it. Since the turmoil of the War of the Eight Princes in western Jin, internal conflicts within the royal Sima clan left them unable to effectively govern the Central Plains region. Taking advantage of this situation, the Xiongnu leader Lu Yuan, with the support of many highly Sinicized ethnic groups, established the first nomadic political regime that respected and adopted the traditions of Chinese culture, with an orderly legal system, mirroring that of the Han dynasty. After centuries of interaction and cohabitation, the magnificent palaces, bustling cities, and abundant material wealth of the Han dynasty were widely admired by various nomadic peoples. Moreover, they were particularly drawn to and revered the moral and cultural traditions centered around filial piety. The concept of a loving and responsible family, along with an orderly society governed by laws, were aspirations shared by ordinary people regardless of ethnicity. This is why Lu Yuan's Han dynasty gained the following of various ethnic groups, including the Han Chinese. Subsequently, multiple nomadic regimes were established following Lu Yuan's model. Their leaders did not immediately declare themselves emperors, but rather kings, establishing their own separatist regimes while acknowledging the Han Chinese dynasty as the legitimate authority. They sought capable Han Chinese individuals to govern alongside them, emphasizing rule of law, rewarding virtue, and punishing wrongdoing. They promoted talented individuals to positions of authority, ensuring clarity in governance. They established schools and employed Confucian scholars to teach and spread Confucian classics and historical texts. They actively promoted Confucian moral values such as loyalty, filial piety, benevolence, and righteousness, facilitating cultural integration between nomadic peoples and the Han Chinese. An individual's moral cultivation can improve due to their personal disposition and education, but cultural reforms that entail a nationwide shift in customs and traditions are far more challenging. Achieving such reforms requires the concerted efforts of multiple generations. In just 18 short years, Fu Jian's deceased prime minister, Wang Meng, helped transform a culturally backward and weak D-tribe regime into the largest power in the Central Plains region. During this period, the Qin dynasty was able to swallow up the culturally advanced state of Yan, which was many times more powerful, due to internal strife and corruption within the Yan dynasty of the Murong clan, and the forced departure of the feared warlord Murong Chui, whom the Qin army had long feared. Wang Meng, with his shrewdness, took advantage of this rare opportunity to launch a military campaign and annihilate the state. After annexing the state of Yan, the Qin dynasty became the largest power in the Central Plains region. Other smaller states surrendered without a fight, making the Qin dynasty a superpower, even larger than the Han Chinese Eastern Jin dynasty. While Fu Jian's D-tribe kinsmen indulged in feasting and material pursuits, the Murong Xianbei people actively embraced Sinicization. They brought in Han Chinese scholars to refine the bureaucratic system and establish laws. Through nearly a century of efforts, the people of Yan became talented and influential in the Central Plains region. Even after the Yan state was annexed by the Qin dynasty, those Xianbei people who had lived under the old Yan regime still couldn't forget the glorious era of the Yan state during the lifetime of the regent Murong Ke. Fu Jian was inherently kind-hearted and vowed from a young age to eliminate the hatred between ethnic groups, ensuring that all people could live happily, whether they were Han Chinese or non-Han. However, Fu Jian's governance was overly benevolent. He treated the rulers of various separatist regimes who surrendered or were captured too generously. In particular, all members of the Murong Xianbei royal family of the Yan state were granted official positions and military ranks. If during peacetime these Xianbei people, deeply influenced by Chinese culture, could have contributed to the Sinicization reforms of the entire Qin dynasty's various ethnic groups. However, if the regime were unstable and society were in turmoil, these proud Xianbei people, who did not see themselves as non-Han, would inevitably entertain thoughts of restoring their own state. In ancient China, people believed that the three most important factors determining the outcome of a war were timing, geographical environment, and human factors. Fu Jian's campaign against Qin did not have an advantage in any of these three conditions. Firstly, the Eastern Qin dynasty was not a corrupt regime. There was harmony between ruler and subjects, and unity between the military and the people. On the contrary, the Qin dynasty had been waging wars year after year, burdening the people heavily. Although it briefly unified various ethnic groups, its regime was unstable, making the timing of the campaign against Qin unfavorable for Qin. Secondly, the northern Qin soldiers were not adept at naval warfare, while the terrain at the Battle of Feishui involved intricate river systems, giving the southern-based Eastern Qin army a significant advantage. Most importantly, the Han Chinese regime of Eastern Qin was regarded as the legitimate inheritor of Chinese culture by the Sinicizing ethnic groups within the Qin dynasty. Additionally, there were no social upheavals within the Eastern Qin regime akin to the War of the Eight Princes during the Western Qin period. Therefore, they found it difficult to accept Fu Jian's justification for the invasion of Qin under the guise of unification. The only advantage of the Qin dynasty lay in its massive army, but Fu Jian's mobilization of 870,000 Qin soldiers had not yet been fully assembled. Rushing recklessly into action, Fu Jian deployed only a vanguard force of over 200,000 soldiers to confront the well-trained Eastern Qin army, numbering nearly 100,000, failing to exert a significant deterrent effect. Fu Jian was a benevolent monarch who ruled with virtue and was admired by his people. However, his lack of understanding of the darker aspects of human nature and his idealistic tendencies made him ill-equipped to make clear judgments on the complex domestic and international situations, thus failing to govern the country effectively. Therefore, Fu Jian could not become a great monarch, nor was he an outstanding military strategist. War is a struggle for survival, where it's either you or me. When Fu Jian initiated war, it meant he abandoned his principles of benevolence and righteousness, and as a consequence, he would face retaliation devoid of such virtues. Following the failure of the Battle of Feishui, Emperor Fu Jian's prestige was completely lost. Tribal leaders of the various ethnic groups who had been forgiven and generously treated by Fu Jian after their states were conquered, now rebelled one after another, breaking free from the rule of the Qin dynasty and establishing separatist regimes. Once again, the Central Plains region plunged into turmoil.